What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Sound Money Podcast. I don't actually have my mic set up today. I can't find the actual input right now, but I wanted to jump on this episode because I did a previous episode on the future of work about the gig economy, the 1099 workforce, and everything that is changing for the future of work. And a lot of the questions that I got were around the generational differences between saving money and investing money and how that has changed. So I wanted to just do a brief episode on that because a lot of questions came through about it, and I think that it's important to address certain generational differences for everybody out there that's watching from all different backgrounds and generations and ages and whatnot. So the first piece is from a financial perspective, there are a lot of different options now than there used to be. There are a lot more options out there. And when it comes to the difference between saving money and investing money, everyone that is listening to this or watching this, please leave a like on the video, slap a like on there. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. But everybody that's listening to this and watching knows that investing money, making money work for you is ultimately the goal for everyone in life. You want to put your money to work so you're making money while you sleep. You want to wake up every morning slightly more wealthy than you were when you went to sleep, whether that's $1 or $1 million, whatever it is. You need to be putting money to work and all throughout your life so that it continuously builds over time. From very, very basic perspective here. But I do think that there are some generational differences. The concept of just save money and, retire at a later age, this is something that will not exist in 10 to 20 years. And that's not me saying that. That is just the basic raw facts are pointing at the fact that Social Security and a lot of these programs that were in place from a previous generation will not sustain after the next decade or 2 decades. And it's just because it was structured in a way that was not long term. And what's happening now is that old framework of saying, like, all right, you got a strong back, you go out, you go to work, and you provide for your family, you put money away, and ultimately you can retire and live comfortably off of the yield of investments, fixed income over time from Social Security and all of these things that are working for you. And that's just not going to be an option for younger people currently today. If you're a millennial or a Gen Z, then that's really not going to be obtainable at a certain point. There are a lot of other mechanisms that I've talked about on the channel, so don't feel discouraged by that. It is just a different way of doing exactly what I just mentioned from the previous generations, where instead of putting money away in a bank account and sitting there, you can invest it in various assets. You can invest it in real estate. You can invest it in, or just put it into a high yield savings account, which is it's slightly different than what currently exists. They are coming out more and more and more, and they're becoming more and more competitive. You can invest it in index funds. You can invest in various different types of dividend yielding stocks where they're paying you every quarter or throughout the year as companies are paying their stakeholders. There are a lot of great ways to make money. And I'm not here to give financial advice or tell you where to put your money. All I'm saying is that the generational difference in just parking money aside in a 401k and then retiring once you're 60 or 65 years old or 60 years old is just not going to be, the data does not line up for the next 2 generations. It has been kind of rinsed out for the current boomer generation, and the next 2 generations are a little bit out on their own to figure this stuff out. So what I wanted to talk to you today about is about high yield savings accounts, because investing, a lot of people see it as risky. I think that there's plenty of information that has been put out there, not on my channel, but about talking about the safest, low risk, low profile investments that you can possibly put your money into, like index funds. I'm a big fan of alternative assets that are a little bit higher risk at a young age so that you can bounce back if they do go to zero or something like that. In a worst case scenario, I always think of worst case, but with high yield savings accounts, literally you're just moving money, parking it, and you're getting 1.7 to 1.9% a year, which is substantially better than some of these larger businesses that are giving you 0.1%, 0.09. So for example, with some of the larger companies with like a checking account, you're getting 0%. And if you're getting a traditional savings account at something like a Bank of America or a Chase or something like that, you're getting 0.1%. So out of $5,000, if you have that saved, you're getting $5 per year. Now, high yield savings accounts, those are going to be anywhere between, like I said, 1.7% and above, usually below 2%, but in some cases, the typical APY is going to be 2.3%, which out of $5,000 gives you $116 additional. So $5,116 after a year. So totally different scenarios there. If you notice the difference in traditional savings, 0.10, $5,005 after a year, high yield savings account, 2.3% on average, and that's $5,111 or $116 a year. That immediately should tell you, okay, if I'm gonna park my money somewhere, I should not park it in the place that is only giving me $5 per year. I should put it in the place that is giving me $116 a year on top of the principal amount. And there's also CDs, certificate of deposits, that are also very attractive for long-term parking money. But I wanted to just debunk this a little bit. A lot of people think that when you move money into a savings account like that, you have to hold it for a very, very long time. And this is not necessarily the case. For example, if you're self-employed, you can park this money in a high yield savings account until it's time to pay taxes. And then you have that additional money that you've made on top. You have that interest being paid to you that you have as income. And obviously you have to pay additional taxes and whatnot. But it is a yield, so you are making money off of your money, and just by having it sit there. So it is a very responsible thing to do. You can do it for an emergency fund. A lot of people recommend always having cash available in emergency fund. Now, some would argue that is, you want to put it in cash, like having physical cash instead of putting it in a bank if things happened. Just as a raw point that I always use is that during the Great Depression, the banks shut down when people tried to rush on the banks when everything crashed. And the banks gave people, when they opened back up, it was 10 cents on the dollar that they were giving people back. So if you had $1, they were giving you 10 cents. Now, that's a extreme scenario. The Great Depression is not going to hit us that hard again, I don't believe. But I do think that you need to diversify. You need to spread out across. Now, the high yield savings accounts, there's a lot of them out there. And their Betterment is the one that I always recommend to people. There's Wealthfront. There's Citibank offers one. I think Goldman Sachs has one. Capital One has one. There's quite a few of them out there, but they do have minimum balances. So with Citibank, it's 0, which is great. Goldman Sachs is 0, but for something that is a little bit more less traditional, like a State Farm bank, they require $1,000. Capital One is 0, and most of these are going to be paying between off $5,000. They're claiming that it's going to be about $500 a year, which I find quite strange. But they are offering like bonuses when you sign up and things like that. So a very interesting way to diversify money in a super low risk. I mean, we're not talking about investing money. We're literally just talking about moving money into a different place. This is if you want to buy a car one day, you're anticipating taxes as somebody that's self-employed, you're making home renovations, you're preparing for college, you're getting ready to make a down payment on another investment property or another house. you're planning vacation, you're saving for a wedding, you're doing your emergency fund, like I said. There's a lot of different reasons that you would put money into a high yield savings account. But for all of my people out there that are very low risk tolerance, this is a very low risk movement. And just getting in that mindset where think about, you need to make your money, put your money to work now so that you don't have a scary scenario when you're 50 years old and you're trying to figure things out of how you're going to decrease the amount of work every day that you're putting in. And it used to be the case where everybody was like, oh yeah, my retirement's going to click on at 59 and a half or 65, whatever it is. And I'm going to be fine. I'm going to live on a fixed income. And these next generations just don't have that luxury. You need to be smart. You need to be able to invest money quickly. You need to be able to learn all of these different vehicles in which you can park your money and put your money to work. Peer-to-peer lending is a huge one that I leverage, and a lot of people that I know that are very wealthy leverage, where you're actually lending money out and getting that back with interest. And there are a lot of great vehicles out there. So I wanted to just make this episode to show you guys that it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. There's plenty of information about where to park money, invest money, move money around as a young person. There's plenty of it out there. I'm not the person that's going to be telling you exactly where to put your money. I am just merely here to say that it's important to know it's going to be all right. There are generational differences in how money works, how to invest money, and how things are going to end up in life. And I think that it's important to know that those are not the same principles that the next generations have. They are different. They are fundamentally different, actually. And I think that it's important to recognize that, own that, and feel that you are ready to move money around on your own. And it's perfectly okay to make your choices on your own and not rely on a program that is in place, like a Social Security situation that is going to implode, and everybody's kind of looking at it and saying like, hey, why isn't this going to last? And it's important to just take action on your own. And I think that short-term, long-term goals, short-term should be each year putting away $5,000, $10,000, the best that you possibly can into these various different high-yielding savings accounts, or your investments like index funds or dividend-paying stocks, things like that. And just set it up back into a number that you want by the time that you're 60. And I think that that's probably the best advice that I've ever gotten from people. So that is it for this episode. I hope you guys like it. It was brief, but I wanted to go through the high yield savings accounts, rough numbers, and the generational differences and what we can expect as a younger generation, as well as what the older generation has access to and what they are going to leverage and are leveraging right now. And as I've said in previous episodes, millennials at the average age of 35 are going to only own 3% of wealth, which is a huge hit to a generation relative to the boomers that I believe had 16% of wealth, 16 to 20%, and previous generations before that owned substantially more wealth. So it's a clear drop, and we need to take action and do something about putting money to work. And that's it. Wanted to diffuse that situation. Thanks so much for all of the DMs and all of the comments, guys, about these questions around the generational differences in saving money and just generational finance differences in general. I think it's a fascinating subject. But that is it for this episode. If you guys are new here, subscribe, and don't forget to smash the like. Really helps the channel. And I will see you guys on the next episode of the Sound Money Podcast.